Throughout history, there have been inexplicable phenomena, paranormal experiences, mythical creatures, events that defy logic. Now, Sci-Fi Channel has assembled a team of investigators. 4 individuals with different expertise.
You're suggesting it.
And very different perspectives.
Not at all.
He doesn't believe anything.
It's not that I don't believe anything.
Together, they will search for the truth behind mysteries old and new.
Ooh, doing science, that's good.
Archaeologist Bill Dolman.
But how come there's no tangible evidence?
Crime scene investigator Deborah DeBridney. Paranormal investigator Rich Dolan.
I think that there is secret technology.
And skeptic Rob Mariano.
Kids finding errors already.
The team behind Sci Fi Investigates. Tonight, the Sci Fi Investigates team goes to West Virginia to unravel the mystery of Mothman, a fearsome, red-eyed creature made famous by Richard Gere in the 2002 film, The Mothman Prophecies. 40 years ago, Mothman terrorized the tiny town of Point Pleasant. More than 100 witnesses reported seeing the soaring 6-foot creature.
That thing jumped on the hood of the car.
At the same time, unidentified flying objects appeared in the sky. While on the ground, mysterious men in black warned residents not to report what they'd seen.
She thought they were aliens, actually, disguised as humans.
Now, with new reports of Mothman sightings reviving interest in the case, the team heads to Point Pleasant in search of answers.
It's kind of gliding.
With tireless research, they'll untangle a bizarre web of overlapping paranormal events that some say culminate in the largest bridge disaster in U.S. history.
46 people perished in the bridge collapse.
Was it all connected? A harbinger of impending doom?
It became a big thing once locals started seeing it.
Tonight, the Sci-Fi Investigates team uncovers the truth behind the mystery of Mothman.
Here we are in West Virginia. We're here to investigate the Mothman story and also look at the strange happenings of Point Pleasant, West Virginia. So how do we feel?
I'm psyched. I'm pumped.
I'm the team leader for this Mothman investigation, so I want to make sure we get a really wide array of evidence, including witness testimony and any physical evidence that may be out there incorporated into our investigation.
We got a strange creature, men in black.
Yes.
That's right, the real ones.
And UFOs. What else? Is there anything else?
Well, and then there's the collapse of the Silver Bridge.
Yeah, but I do have to point out that Mothman is not only associated with Point Pleasant. There's been many disasters throughout the world,
All
such
around
as
the world.
the Mexico
Australia.
City earthquake, the Chernobyl disaster. It was associated with Chernobyl, and also with 9/11. There was supposedly a sighting of Mothman before 9/11.
Do you think that people make up that they saw the Mothman after the disaster?
That's one way of doing it.
Because I mean, it's not like they reported before.
How much credence are we giving to these stories before we talk to the witnesses? Based on our research that
How
we've done.
convinced are you right now?
Right.
I can tell you as a UFO researcher, Mothman is one topic that almost 90+% of the researchers would say, like, no, keep away. It's kind of weird.
As a scientist, I am looking for information, physical evidence, convincing eyewitnesses that will help me identify what I think must be the kernel of truth that lies at the heart of the Mothman mystery.
Step on it, will you? I want to get there today.
Approaching Main Street of Point Pleasant, West Virginia was like entering a time warp.
Hey guys, wow, take a look at this town, huh?
Oh wow, look at this.
Oh my God.
Did you take a look at it? It looks like they're stuck in the 60s
It
here.
really looks
This is
wow.
We are
just
in
like it did.
Retroville, guys.
Oh, here's the statue.
The Mothman statue?
Oh my gosh.
Come on,
That's
with
what
that thing. I'm speechless.
That's
I mean, come on, guys. This is what we're looking for?
Yes.
Why don't we go check in?
You guys want to check in the hotel?
Yeah,
let's do it.
We checked into the hotel, took our bags up to the room, and then decided to take a tour of the town. And that took us to the Mothman Museum, which was in itself quite an interesting experience.
The Mothman Museum was like a playground for Rob because it is so kitschy.
Do not close your eyes.
I mean, it just set Rob up perfectly for, you know, getting his opinion in that he can debunk this Mothman legacy. It was really funny to watch him.
My initial take is, I don't really believe in Mothman, but this hotel that we're staying at is haunted, and I don't like it. Not one bit.
Hey, how you doing? I'm Jeff Walmsley.
We met Jeff Walmsley, the guy who created the museum.
It's a big part of the town's history, and I grew up here. There were over 100 reported sightings with a 3-month period in 66, 67.
One thing Jeff made very clear was that there was a very strong concentration of UFO sightings at the same time that there were Mothman sightings here in West Virginia.
The headlines from the period where these Mothman sightings were occurring are kind of fantastic. They're really in your face. Mothman seen, by couple on a bridge.
I'm just wondering, where do you stand on all of this?
I think it actually happened. I mean, it was too many people that saw it. I found these police reports here if you want to check these out.
At one point, Jeff mentioned that he actually had the original handwritten statements of the first eyewitnesses, Linda Scarberry, her husband, and one other person. And I asked if we could see them.
These were all written at the sheriff's department.
How do you know they came from the police department? Because they're not on like official form.
These came from Linda Scarberry's collection.
All three of them look pretty old.
Well, I will say this. I am an amateur graphologist, for the record.
Here we go.
Handwriting analysis.
What don't you do? Out of nowhere, he's an amateur handwriting specialist, expert. Like, are you kidding me, dude? Get a hobby. Something that's normal.
This is what Linda writes. We were riding through the TNT area on a side road by the old powerhouse building around 12 o'clock on Tuesday night. I looked up and saw it go around the corner at the old powerhouse. It didn't run, but wobbled like it couldn't keep its balance. They saw this creature gun the car to over 100 miles per hour and basically panicked. And she gave a pretty thorough description of what happened step by step.
Myself, as an investigator, I'm not really buying what's in them. I've seen a lot of statements coming from witnesses of a crime or those who had been victims of a crime, and they're not that well planned out and they're not that coherent.
Unless I meet with Linda and I decide that I don't feel she's a trustworthy person, I'm working on the assumption that these statements are what Jeffrey said that they were. That they were statements made at the time, early on what these people saw.
You guys, why don't we go and check out the rest of Main Street?
Let's go.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, good luck.
Thanks, man.
I thought it was really cool that he brought those statements out. Because the reason I asked is I wanted to know whether they could be produced.
And he produced them. But you don't think they're legitimate? You think they're fake?
To me, not fake, but the statements to me, there's no indication that they came from the police department whatsoever, and there's no signed statement that a police call when you take a statement.
Well, it's protocol for your police department in 2006. Go back 40 years in rural West Virginia. I mean, really.
The discussion got pretty animated because we had a variety of different opinions about it. I'm with Debbie here, and because I think we share the same thing. It's the whole distance from the evidence question. And for me as an archaeologist, it's what we call provenance or provenience.
I think this is a silly...
Hang on.
No, you're being silly because
no, I'm not.
No one ever...
Now you're interrupting me, Rich. I ain't going to put up with it.
Bill kind of laid down the law a little bit with Rich because Bill knows as a really good scientist that the further you are away from the origin of evidence, the less you can give credence to that piece of evidence.
I mean, I just think it's silly to doubt at this point that these were actual statements that these people wrote. It seems silly to me.
Look, here's the deal. Tomorrow, when we talk to Linda, what I'd like to do is ask her if she remembers writing the statement. Ask her what the protocol was for writing it.
Great.
After we had our discussion, we headed back to the hotel and we walked into the lobby.
And sort of had a powwow to plan out the rest of our investigation. But while we were sitting there, this woman comes and approaches our group, and she says,
"Hi, sorry to interrupt.
Hi.
Are you guys here about Mothman?
We are.
I am a witness.
Wow. What's your name? Please join us.
My name is Robin Pyatt Bellamy.
She told us about her Mothman experience, which was when she was about 8 or 9 years old. She was in a car, saw a Mothman standing next to a railroad track while they were driving down the road. How close were you to it?
Oh, probably twice the distance between me and you.
Can you describe what you saw then?
My 8 or 9-year-old brain registered a man in a wetsuit with wings. Very slippery kind of texture to him. Very muscular. Definitely no beak. The whole bird thing is only from the wings, not from any facial expression of a bird. And those red eyes, and they're startling.
Yeah, it's one of the things that really stands out.
I think all of the team members took Robin seriously when she was describing her Mothman experiences.
I think that you'll find, especially with the Mothman witnesses, a lot of things go on around them. And this town has been known for years as a bit of a vortex.
And in fact, she added yet another thread to the real interesting tapestry that is the Mothman story in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and that is the haunted hotel we're staying in.
I've seen apparitions in this hotel on more than one occasion.
It's a creepy kind of hotel, I gotta say.
Very interesting sighting of 16 a couple years ago.
She took us on a tour of some of the haunted rooms. One of the haunted rooms happens to be my room, room 311. There's apparently this lady that comes and just sort of walks around.
You're right, I don't like the vibe in here.
Shut up. It's cold right here. Feel it. There's areas that are randomly cold.
It is cold here.
Yeah, I agree. It is cold here.
After speaking with Robin about this hotel, I'm totally creeped out.
I swear, if I see one more weird thing, I'm gonna be walking back to Boston.
I thought you were the non-believer.
I don't believe in the flying Mothman.
Oh, but you're willing to believe in a ghost.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Ghosts are
Now,
real?
tell me.
Are you kidding me?
After we came out of Debbie's room, a couple of people were going downstairs, and there was all this commotion down at the bottom of the stairs. I'm thinking, what's happening?
I hate being scared, I swear to God.
Okay, what's going on here?
I don't know, I just got scared.
And as I was able to figure it out, he thought he saw an apparition down the hallway of this very hotel. And I'm thinking, come on, man, are you like pulling my leg or what?
You know, he's freaking out, and really, for the skeptic to be freaking out, I'm getting kind of like, you know, he was pretty scared.
In fact, he was so freaked out, he didn't even want to talk about it or even stay in the hotel.
Because I hate it, I'm leaving. Did you see? I don't want to go up in this hotel and go to sleep because something weird's going on. And that's the best I can do to explain it. It's absolutely nothing scientific, it's nothing concrete, but it's just a feeling I have.
Coming up, the team hears chilling accounts from Mothman eyewitnesses.
I just froze. And I just thought, well, at any time, this creature, whatever he is, my life's over.
And later, a search for evidence in the Mothman's original haunt.
To be shining flashlights around, and you never knew, you know, if you were going to come across two red eyes.
When Sci Fi Investigates continues.
Well, after spending a pretty restless night in our haunted hotel, the team decided that the best way to start our second day of investigation would be to track down some witnesses who actually experienced Mothman firsthand, up close. And we wanted to end the day by camping out where the military used to make bombs. The locals call it the TNT area. It's the area where the Mothman was first sighted.
So the first thing we did this morning was meet with Linda Scarberry. Hi, I'm Rob. Good to meet you. She was the original first witness to Mothman. And I gotta say, I was excited to meet her because we had a first-hand account of the lady who started all of this.
She sat down and talked to us and gave us her full account of what she went through that day and how it's affected her life.
We were out driving around. It's about 11:30, and we decided to go chase Parker's. So we went up in the TNT area, and it was standing in the doorway of the powerhouse.
What was standing there?
The Mothman.
How close were you to this? I mean, do you get a good look at this?
Yeah, pretty good. We never did see a face, though, because the eyes were so bright. Well, kind of a bright red.
Linda Scarberry was describing the Mothman to us, and the thing that stuck out the most to me was the fact that this creature had big red eyes. It was half human, half bird-like, it had wings, but she kept reiterating the big red eyes.
I've never seen that color red before.
So you saw it, and then what was your reaction immediately?
So we took off, and it followed us all the way down into town.
Flying over your car?
Yeah.
You must have been terrified.
Oh, it was.
One thing about Linda's account that did make it credible was that the fact that they actually did go to the police headquarters directly after the incident to report it.
And what happened when you got there, the police station?
They just thought it was crazy.
Did they take a statement from you or anything?
Yeah, they had us write out a statement.
Did they give you paper, or did they just have
They just had paper there. And they didn't believe us, though. They didn't want to fool with us. They just laughed it off. But we went ahead and wrote that out, and they sent somebody
told her
out.
story really honestly. From her demeanor, you could tell that she was still scared of the event, even though it's happened more than 40 years ago. And, I don't know, she's pretty credible of a witness, I think.
They did see something real. What is it that could stand? All right, look about the size of a man, have glowing red eyes, and then fly. I can't think of anything.
But the problem is, there's no details in the facts. They're all all the facts are vague.
Remember, it did happen a very long time ago.
It did. It
there were a lot
happened
of
40
details.
years ago, but I mean, as far as the police didn't believe him, and
You
they
could
gave
parade
the
1,000
statement
excellent witnesses in front of Rob, and he'll never, ever change his mind. Rob will never believe in the Mothman, not in 1,000 years, not unless he sees a Mothman himself.
So, guys, here's the house of Marcella Bennett. Now, this is the woman who also had an eyewitness account of the Mothman shortly after Linda Scarberry.
Yeah.
Marcella, thank you for having us here today.
I'm glad to have you.
Did you have a close-up sighting of the Mothman?
I did.
A strange thing happened to Marcella one evening leaving her brother's home with her young daughter. Her brother asked her to look in the sky. There was this bright ovular light in the sky really close to the ground. So she did see the ovular light in the sky, but then upon reaching her car, she came upon this creature with legs.
I could see it was more like a bird. It had wings and a span, but its neck went down in like a bird, like that.
Did you get a look at the face?
No, I know it wasn't a bird. It was too large for a bird.
So what did you do?
I just froze. And I just thought, well, at any time, this creature, whatever he is, my life's over.
And after being frozen in terror, understandably, for a brief period of time, she turned and ran.
It happened. It's real. And then, yes, it's hard to believe because you didn't see it and you didn't experience it.
Marcella went on to tell us that 13 months later, her uncle also saw the creature in broad daylight outside his window.
And he told me that he had looked out his back glass towards the Ohio River and the bridge, and that same day that bridge fell, within 3 hours, that there was a creature, like you saw, Marcella, flying towards that bridge.
What kind of person was your uncle?
He was a very respectable person, and he would never told me that if he, hadn't saw what he saw.
Guys, we should check this out too, the River Museum. To learn more about the Silver Bridge collapse and its possible connection to the Mothman sightings, we took our investigation to Point Pleasant's River Museum.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Rich with Sci Fi Investigates.
Here's the picture of it after it fell.
Upstairs, we spoke to Ruth about why the bridge collapsed and how it affected Point Pleasant as a community.
Here is our model of the Silver Bridge. And this eye-bar right here is the one that broke. And it only took one of those eye-bars to break to cause the whole bridge to fall.
I was particularly interested in finding out what actually caused the Silver Bridge collapse because of what Marcella told us, and also because the Mothman Prophecies movie hinted that the Mothman sightings actually foretold the disaster. Ruth, was there any indication with what you know about the collapse and all the research that you've done that tie into the Mothman?
It depends on who you're talking to. Some people, they think that the Mothman, was an omen of something bad to come, and that it wasn't spotted locally after the Silver Bridge fell. I kind of keep them separate myself.
Out of the 46 people who perished in the bridge collapse, the highest percentage of people from one area came from Point Pleasant. So that must have been just devastating, especially in light of the Mothman hysteria that was going on at the time.
Here's a picture of it after it fell.
I can imagine how devastating the impact would have been.
Traffic bypasses Point Pleasant now as a whole. We have lots of empty buildings now due to the fact that, you know, businesses have gone elsewhere.
This bridge falling down and seeing this Mothman thing is the most exciting thing that's ever happened here in the history of these people's lives.
That makes it untrue?
It just created some excitement, and then they perpetuated it by trying to relate every single thing that happened to it.
I don't think Rob's opening up to the idea of Mothman and Point Pleasant. He may respect a witness for presenting their story in a believable manner, but I don't think he's in any way swayed toward the possibility of Mothman existing. Unless he sees it in the woods for himself, he's not going to believe it.
Next, the team follows a trail of reports linking Mothman to sightings of UFOs and mysterious men in black.
She thought they were aliens.
Well, we've been in West Virginia for 24 hours now, and we
Actually.
Plus later, Rob goes into the deep looking for lost evidence.
I found myself 25 feet down on the bottom of this river. I mean, it was a little bit scary.
What will his search reveal?
Well, we've been in West Virginia for 24 hours now, and we haven't come across any physical evidence up to this point. So, the team's really anxious to get out to this area where the Mothman was first sighted. The locals call it the TNT area because it's where the military used to make and store bombs. But before we do that, we need to speak to two more witnesses who can take us deeper into Point Pleasant's alleged paranormal past. So, guys, we're heading over to Faye DeWitt's house now. She had an encounter when she was 14 years old.
This is one of the weirdest stories of all with the Mothman. She said her brother was a skeptic. He said, let's go out into the TNT area and we're going to prove that this is all a big hoax.
And so we all rode with him out there, and we were going to go out there and prove this thing wrong. And so after we turned off on that main road, he noticed at first, my brother did, something by the window because he kept turning his head looking, you know. And then after he did it the second time, I said, well, what is it? And he said, well, don't look. He said, but there's something by the window there, and I don't know what it is.
And when she turned to look, she saw this creature running beside the car on two legs.
It was kind of like this, you know, bent over a little bit, running and looking in with his head turned so he could see in there.
So were you guys screaming?
The other kids was crying and hollering, you know.
And then later on, it eventually hopped onto the hood and crouched there and looked at both Faye and her brother, and so they got a really good look at the creature.
Is there a color you noticed to the eye?
Yes, a red like you've never seen red before.
At some point, the creature jumped in front of the car and leaped in one jump, she said, to the top of a tall house or building.
And just sit there just like anybody watching somebody, and that's when I noticed it had claws on its feet. How many toes or whatever, I don't know.
Then her brother opens the door like a police officer about to shoot a criminal, and from behind this door starts, in her words, chucking coal at the Mothman.
And it landed right almost at the bottom of its foot and rolled down. When it did, that thing stood up. I said, now look what you've done. You got to come and answer us. Get back in the car.
And they got back in and he peeled out. That's Faye's story.
I have to say that I do believe that Faye saw something. I mean, she just seemed so convinced of her story.
And then she started talking to us about her premonitions.
I just had the awful dread that day.
Her first premonition was about a year later, during the collapse of the Silver Bridge.
We were supposed to be on that bridge that day.
Is that right?
And I just felt like something was going to happen if we went over.
And then, of course, the bridge collapsed. Since that time, Faye has said that she's had a number of premonitions which she says have come true. She links this to the Mothman sighting.
But since then, oh man, they've been like every time I turn around now, just about.
What's really interesting about Faye is that while some people think that Mothman sightings are a bad omen, she actually thinks her Mothman experience gave her the power to sense impending doom.
I can tell when things are going to happen. I've told it, and it's happened, and it scared me to death, so I got thinking, hey, I'm losing it here, you know.
She had seen Mothman, and she had had premonitions. And it's just a little too neat a story. That detracts from the credibility for me.
After Faye's interview, I had it. I was done with doing interviews for the day.
So, you know, that was interesting to say the least, but it is getting late in the day, and we need to set up camp.
Yeah.
I was thinking about putting the tents together and getting camp set up. If you guys want, you go talk to Dottie Campbell. I'm kind of interviewed out.
While Rob went out to the TNT area where Faye, Linda, and Marcella had seen the Mothman to set up our campsite, the rest of us went to meet with Dottie Campbell.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Debbie. I'm with Sci Fi Investigates.
Hi,
Dottie
Debbie.
told us about some of the other strange things that happened in Point Pleasant around the same time as the Mothman sightings, the Men in Black, and UFOs.
She was a next-door neighbor to Mary Heyer, and Mary was the journalist who really got the Mothman story out there to the world.
Mary Heyer was a really respectable journalist at the time who wrote about Mothman sightings and sightings of the Men in Black and the paranormal. And she used to relate these stories to Dottie over this chain link fence.
She'd go out at night and watch the UFOs. There was quite a rash of them at that time here. And while she was a reporter and would be in her office on 6th Street was where she was encountered with the Men in Black. And she would tell me as we talked over the fence how frightened she was of the Men in Black.
Could you tell us some of the things? What would they be talking with her about?
They did try to get her not to write about these stories any longer. She thought they were aliens, actually, disguised as humans and were from somewhere else.
Why do you think she thought that? Did she give you any
Because of their look and their complexion and never blinking their eyes and that type of thing.
After talking about Mary Heyer with Dottie, we walked across the property that used to be her backyard toward the spot where she and her family witnessed this huge flying saucer above their house during a summer cookout.
We encountered this UFO that went over the house right in this area. It was a large, long, cylinder-type craft. It was huge. It was probably 3 house lengths long.
She's like the grandma that everyone wants to have. I have a hard time thinking that this person is making up a shred of anything. Now, was it high in the sky or low? Or...
It was low. It was treetop high.
Dottie, did you file a report on this UFO?
We did call the police. The city policeman came and we were telling him about it, and he said, "What have you folks been drinking?" You know, this is a teenage party. We've had Cokes. And that's about it. So he left, and we didn't even talk about it again.
My suspicion is that Bill and Debbie they don't really know what to think. They recognize that there are credible witnesses, but they don't seem to be willing to take the leap into thinking, hey, maybe this Mothman represents some kind of strange reality that actually may have existed here at Point Pleasant.
Coming up, the team retraces Mothman's steps in the thick wilderness he once roamed.
This is creepy.
And attempts to lure him back out of the darkness. When Sci Fi Investigates continues.
After a day of interviewing eyewitnesses, we decided to spend the night in the area where the Mothman was first sighted. It's a wildlife reserve the locals call the TNT area since the military used to make and store bombs out here. That's where Bill and I went looking for some evidence as to why the Mothman might have been here those 40 years ago.
I was 10 when all this happened. Everybody said there's a huge bird chasing cars in the TNT area. So
we met with Denny, who seems to be a bit of an expert in the history of the TNT location.
Well, you know, you're in the McClintock Wildlife Area, known locally to the locals here as the TNT area, since that's what they manufactured out here.
This is huge.
Well, there's 6,000 acres out here.
While we were walking around in this jungly place on this path, it was definitely kind of a creepy experience, and I was imagining the thing with big red eyes came out of that jungle, and I saw it. Wow, I would be really impressed.
The paths are kind of overgrown, and there's the canals that look like a swamp thing could just crawl right out of it. Danny told us that when the explosive plant closed years ago, toxic waste seeped into the ground and polluted the water. In fact, this whole area is a Superfund site.
I'm really interested in this business of toxic material in the groundwater. Do you know, and especially because certain people, I believe, have said or hypothesized that Mothman might have been a mutant creature that was created by the toxic waste here. What do you think about that?
You know, a lot of people thought it was a mutant sandhill crane. Of course, there's a lot of water birds out here, but you can't even get near a crane. I mean, much less something that would come up to your car and get after you. So,
I mean, there's just so many square miles of lush, overgrown forest, and you could get lost in a matter of 30 seconds. It's easy to believe that people would think there's something living out there.
Well, we're going to go take a look at some igloos, some of the old powder magazines that were out here.
And then we started going down this trail to find one of these igloo munition storage locations and actually go in and look at it.
There's a lot of places to hide out here, and a lot of people speculated that these igloos were some of the places where the bird hid.
I feel like Indiana Jones now. Holy moly.
You can kind of get an idea, see, you know.
This is creepy.
It's essentially a half sphere of concrete. So the walls are hard concrete, the floor is hard concrete, the echoes are incredible. Is this all powder on the ground? I mean, like, drop a match and we're dead?
Well, I don't know.
And then Bill decided it'd be a good place to do some Mothman calls.
I'm really interested in the sounds that these creatures make. And Robin, that we met with last night, said it made a certain kind of sound. And I asked her to imitate it, and we went back and forth until she said, yes, you've got it.
Well, if the Mothman had showed up in the silo, we had nowhere to run. I mean, the place was just a big, cavernous thing. So we had shining flashlights around, and you never knew, you know, if you were going to come across two red eyes, and that's what I kept looking for, those two glowing red eyes. In your opinion, you personally, do you believe in the Mothman?
I think something was out here, definitely.
So after our tour of the TNT area and it got a little dark, we made sure the fire was good and roaring.
And our boy Rich whips out his trusty harmonica and starts going to town.
Next thing I know, the rest of the gang's singing the Mothman song to Dixie.
45 minutes later, it's like we're doing a Broadway musical. I mean, we're really getting into it.
A little town in West Virginia, that's where we came to find the creature. Fly away, fly away, fly away, Mothman.
Rob was at the top of his game while we were composing this song.
Everybody got to flap. Everybody flap.
I'll flap too.
Even you flap. Mothman, Mothman, I wish I saw.
Pretty indicative of the way our team works. We're like four completely individual people with different points of views.
Hey,
But when we come together, things sound all right.
Coming up, Rob strips down and gears up to look for long-lost evidence in the Ohio River.
The first problem came up the second I jumped in the water.
Plus, will the team unravel the link between Mothman and UFOs?
I said, people never believe what we're seeing right now.
Do you think they were aliens?
When the sun came up on the last day of our investigation, we still had nothing more than other people's memories of Mothman to go on. Then I remembered something Marcella told us her uncle saw the day the Silver Bridge collapsed.
And he told me that within 3 hours that there was a creature, like you saw, Marcella, flying towards that bridge.
Since Rob is a certified diver, we decided we would take a chance. Rich and Rob agreed to go down to the river to look for clues that might have been overlooked in the original investigation. While Bill and I took one last look around the TNT area.
So you're actually going to wear a wetsuit or you just keep your clothes wet? Are you kidding me? Should you go in that water without a wetsuit?
Not me.
Exactly. I really wanted to see the wreckage of the cars, the bridge, what was still down there, just see if they missed anything.
We are actually on the spot where the
place where it was.
First problem came up the second I jumped in the water. I had my mask on, and I looked in the water, and I could see that it was very murky. About 5 minutes later, I found myself 25 feet down on the bottom of this river, not able to see my own hand in front of my face. I mean, it was a little bit scary.
There really are still cows down there. It's kind of dangerous to go down there and not see. You can't see your hand in front of your face, man.
There was no chance to find anything down in that river.
If they miss something, I can't really blame them for missing it.
Yeah.
We wanted to get our hands onto some of the evidence from the Silver Bridge collapse.
Got it.
Since it is so closely associated with Mothman. And I think Rob was disappointed that he wasn't able to pull through on it.
Good job. The way I see it, if you want to look into the Mothman mystery, you're not going to find physical evidence. It's just highly unlikely. What you've got are people. You have witnesses.
To me, the most intriguing paranormal witnesses are the ones who never tell their story for fear of being ridiculed. So when Carolyn Harris decided that she and her family would talk to us on the last day of our investigation for the very first time about their experiences, we jumped at the chance. Mothman stuff back there.
Come on back and we'll visit a little while.
Carolyn's sister actually saw Mothman, or saw what she thought was clearly Mothman.
They were up there, I guess, having a party, and it came out and flew over top of them. And she always thought it was great big and really tall. She didn't know how tall it was because it was flying, and it had big, red, bloody-looking eyes. Not glary like an animal, but big, red, bloody-looking eyes.
Wasn't she going to be meeting with us today?
Yeah, she was, but couldn't be here.
Oh, can we ask you why?
Yeah, her husband would rather she didn't get on tape and say that because he doesn't believe it. He wasn't with her when it happened.
Are we right in assuming you believe your sister?
Oh, yeah. Yes, I do.
Carolyn's brother Ed also had an encounter with a UFO. About 2:30 in the morning, his wife woke him up and said, Ed, you've got to see this outside.
Sure enough, it was a big bright light, and we looked at each other and no idea what it was. We kept talking about it. I said, people never believe what we're seeing right now.
Described a huge, extremely bright circular object that made it seem almost like daylight around his house. And then instantly in a vanish, it was gone.
So that day on the news, they had spottings of UFOs up in Kanawha County, about 2 counties away. I looked at her and I said, that must have been the same thing we seen, what they also seen up there.
Carolyn had seen, she said, one of the men in black, and described him pretty comparably to some of the other witnesses we spoke to, as the kind of person who didn't seem quite right.
I've seen them in town, and I know a few different places that they were, but I didn't realize until I was talking to some people later that whenever they went to shake hands, they went like, what are you doing, you know? And they didn't bat their eyes.
Do you think they were aliens?
Very possible. We had a lot of UFOs at that time.
What about a lot of people that say that the Mothman was flying over the Silver Bridge before it fell down?
We never heard that until another camera crew was in here, and they were coming back to do a movie. They said, because Mothman lit on the bridge to warn people. But all the time we were young, growing up, we never heard that, did we?
Have you heard that story from anyone in town since that time?
Well, now a lot of people say that because they heard that.
Rumors get started that way, where you hear a piece of information and forgetting where it came from, you might repeat it, and then all of a sudden it becomes part of their story.
It's almost like how legends start.
Right.
I mean, it's what I was talking about, the snowball effect.
We obviously came from a different part of the country to check this out. Does it really promote the economy around here?
I can show you my tourist register in. I probably had them from every state in the union and several overseas.
So there is a significant part of the economy in Point Pleasant that depends on Mothman.
Sure has been good for us, I'll tell you that.
The people here are convinced that strange happenings go on, and I think that it's very possible that strange occurrences such as UFOs, maybe something that looks like the Mothman that's been described to us so many times, maybe it's possible that it did happen.
As far as something bizarre making the legend real?
When we return, after talking to witnesses and examining the evidence, the team makes some startling conclusions.
Paranormal stuff happens here. We wrapped up our Mothman investigation with a lot to think about, but little to show for our time in Point Pleasant. We didn't see the big red eyes in the woods out in the TNT area. We didn't come across any physical evidence in the Ohio River where the Silver Bridge collapsed. We couldn't find one person with as much as a feather, a footprint, even a fuzzy photograph of any paranormal event that supposedly occurred here. Still, everyone we talked to seemed totally believable when they told us what they had seen. The question is that enough? Well, guys, we finished our investigation. We did everything we set out to do. What do we think? Is Mothman real?
I'm more likely to believe now than I was when I came in.
It doesn't really surprise me.
My problem is that we spoke to a lot of people that I considered to be very credible, and I can't see that they were lying.
How does that stand as evidence?
It's not evidence at all. We have other people's opinions, and we can form our own. But at the end of the day, they're just opinions.
How many credible, honest people do you need to hear tell you a story before you finally start to believe that it may be true?
A story is still just a story. It's an eyewitness account. But there's really no proof.
Exactly. The only thing you can really do with Mothman, as I see it, is interview witnesses and try to analyze the testimony. You look for flaws, you look for consistency, you look for whatever.
Not really.
What else are you going to do with Mothman?
We were going to put ourselves in a situation where we were most likely to encounter him. And from our diving and our camping, we didn't really come up with anything else.
I think, something scared these people. I don't know what it was, but something did.
They're convinced that they saw something. But now, how do you go from that to Mothman and the question of, is there a Mothman? Was there a creature that's not known to mankind right now?
Here's these people, okay, and they're ordinary people, and they come from small-town America, and they have nothing to gain by telling us Mothman stories, right?
Carolyn and her brother Ed made a point that was pretty convincing to me, and that was that the local economy does depend a great deal on this story.
There's certainly a strong element to that here in this town now. Mothman's a big part of Point Pleasant. A lot of the people we spoke to did not seem to be all that thrilled that they'd seen the Mothman. I mean, unless they're the best liars around, I just don't think so, and I don't think you do either.
I'm not prepared to accept the testimony that we heard as fact or evidence. I'm not.
You'll do anything possible to avoid actually rethinking your reality beliefs here.
The reality is, people can be convincing. Whether you choose to believe a witness does not mean it's truth, does not mean it's fact.
I agree with that.
And in a scientific investigation, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're in pursuit of the truth and the fact.
So am I.
Whatever it was, whatever started it, what I'm seeing here is historical events, disasters, economic trends, all of these things played in with these other things, and I'm at 100% that an awful lot of this is really a cultural phenomenon.
Guys, we could talk about this all night. I think we did a good job here. We got the information, all the information that we could. We did everything that we could, right? We gathered a pretty good case, and I think we learned a lot about it. And we have our opinions, and that's how they stand.
That's how we are.
Next on Sci-Fi, Dark Angel. In the Lost Room, ordinary objects have extraordinary powers. Now you can join them together for a chance to win $5 million. Visit lostroom.com/quest or text message QUEST from your phone to enter the Lost Room bounty hunt. Log on or text now.